What I'm going to talk about today is about a Magento 2 project at Clearbags. I'm actually, I really have a couple of jobs. I'm the VP of IT and e-commerce at Clearbags, and I've been doing that for the last 8 years. But I also have my own company that specializes in helping e-commerce merchants with online advertising, and that's Psyberware. So if you see my name with both, that's why. So the basic agenda is I'm going to go over a little bit about Clearbags and this particular project, talk about some thoughts about when you should upgrade to Magento 2, and go over some things about managing complexity and working with developers on projects like this. So Clearbags sells product packaging primarily to small and mid-sized companies that are too small to go straight to China, Indonesia, Korea, etc., to get their own packaging directly. So we sell smaller quantities. You don't have to buy full container-fulls of packaging from us. You can buy 100 plastic sleeves to put your greeting cards in. So this picture shows just an example of various holiday-themed products, and really, what you're not seeing is what we sell. It's all the clear packaging, bags, boxes, all sorts of different kinds of things, candy containers. We sell clear envelopes that can be used for direct mail purposes, quite a bit of stuff. Clearbags is it's a mid-sized company. We're not tiny. We're not huge. We've got about 75 employees in 2 locations in California and Tennessee. In terms of our Magento order volume, we're not one of these companies that's doing hundreds or thousands of orders per minute. We're usually dealing with dozens of orders per hour. We've got about 5,000 SKUs, and we also take orders for custom products. So a little bit about our Magento 1 installation. We started early. We started 2008. We launched our site in early 2009. This is Magento 1.0 era. So we launched in that era without hosting companies, development agencies, no certified developers. There was no documentation. We got to read the source code and figure out what we were doing. No extension providers at all. There was no enterprise edition. So we launched our site on Community Edition, and we did all the customizations in-house with PHP developers. We've basically had a culture of doing everything in-house because that's how we got started. Even as other extensions came online, various providers, we continued to work in-house because we had quite a few customizations already in place. So another thing I'll say about that is starting in the early days and doing everything in-house, we have code on our Magento 1 site that really varies in quality. Stuff that's great and modern and stuff that's just horrible hack jobs from 2008. So getting off that code base is something that's actually one of our underlying motives for moving to Magento 2. So Magento 2 timeline. We actually made the decision to move to Magento 2 early. We made that decision very early, before it was even released. So we were starting in-house preparations in early 2015. We stopped development on Magento 1 because we knew that we would have to re-implement those things on Magento 2 if we continued. Late in the year, we selected Creativity as the agency we were going to work with, and we got most of our Magento 2 development done pretty quickly in early 2016. And then came the long tail of cleaning up some of the data migration, fixing some bugs, and then finding bugs that we didn't want to fix, that we just put a pause on the project and waited for bug fixes from Magento and from some of the extension providers we're using. Now, into 2016, we're at a point where the bug fixes are all delivered, everything we know about, we're testing some final things, and we think we're about ready to launch. But we've thought that before. So a little bit about when to upgrade. We've obviously had a long Magento 2 project, but I remain very positive about Magento 2, and I think it really is important to start these projects now, and I'll give you a few financial reasons why. So one of the key reasons is that the Magento organization has announced that they're going to end support for Magento 1 in about 3 years after the Magento 2 release became generally available. So we're looking at the end of 2018. We're at the end of 2016 right now. You've got 2 more years of support, patches, bug fixes on Magento 1. But it's going to take you some time to get your Magento 2 site done. You don't want to wait till the last minute. And as more and more people start their projects, and we are certainly seeing that now, as more and more people start their projects, development agencies that actually have Magento 2 skills are going to get impacted. And I really think rates are going to rise and schedules are going to suffer for people waiting till the last minute. I also think there might be some options after 2018. I mean, if that's a money maker for Magento, they'll probably do something like have some extended support at a fee. And there's probably going to be other agencies that are going to continue to support Magento 1 for quite a while. So maybe there's no important rush, but I don't know. I'd rather be ahead of that curve. So the other thing to think about is if you're committed to the Magento platform, you're going to go to the Magento 2. It's really just a question of when. And if you continue working on Magento 1 and customizing on Magento 1, everything you do is going to have to be redone. That presentation about the dependency injection, making some comments about making more testable code that you saw a little bit ago, that sort of thing is a good example of how structurally so many things are different between Magento 1 and 2. And if you've got a bunch of code that's just written in a different style, a Magento 1 style, it really has to be redone. There are pieces you can salvage, but there's quite a bit that's going to have to be redone. So a really important question is are the key extensions that you use available for Magento 2 right now? And really, the big extension providers have done a great job getting extensions out there. But the thing that you really have to worry about, and this has bit us several times, is that Magento 2 extensions don't have all the features that the Magento 1 extensions had. And you really have to not just ask the question of, do you have a Magento 2 extension? You have to ask the question of what does it include and what are you still working on? But by starting those conversations with your extension providers early, you can affect their roadmap and you can tell them what things you need if they're not already in there. And we've had a great time working with those extension providers. They've really helped us out a lot by getting the features we need. So our Magento 1 lifespan was really over 7 years, and we know about what our costs were over that whole lifespan. And you know, looking at Magento 2, there's definitely going to be a big bump in costs migrating from 1 to 2. But we're also looking at getting in early and having a longer lifespan on Magento 2 as well. So we can get a lot more utility out of it and build a lot of the features that we want to build on it. We were in the middle of a lot of development on Magento 1, doing a lot of things to improve the business, and we put a pause on all that so we could actually wait and implement those things one time on Magento 2 and have them useful for a much longer period of time. So I already talked about the Stampede upgrade in late 2017 and into 2018. The other reason why waiting can increase costs is just the opportunity cost perspective. We're not going to see the new good features coming out on Magento 1 at this point. A lot of the new sexy stuff is going to come out from Magento 2. There's already some improvements to Magento 2 over Magento 1, and that is going to continue to diverge. Magento 2 is going to get quite a bit better over the next year or two. We want to be able to take advantage of those things. So really, some people ask me, what features of Magento 2 made you want to upgrade? And it's really not about features at all. It's really about financial decision. And it's not about the short-term financial decision. It's about looking ahead 3 to 5 to 7 years and saying, what are we going to spend over that period? Let's go ahead and take the pain right now of spending a little bit more upfront to move, and let's have a better time over that entire period. It's a better financial decision in our opinion. So a little bit about managing complexity on a project like this. I think it's really important to really simplify. You need to get really clear on what your minimum viable product is, what you really need in order to launch a Magento 2 site, and it might be a little different than what you have on Magento 1, and you're probably going to deal with an organizational situation where you've got people in different departments that want to have various features. We've certainly got that, where people in our marketing department want this feature, and we want to do something else to make the order processing a little bit better. And we made the decision that if it's not already live on our Magento 1 side, that we don't need it to launch. And on top of that, there's even some other things we cut out in order to simplify the project because they're just not as important for getting us launched. We started out by doing a full audit of the site. We had basically 8 years of customizations to look at and figure out what do we even need to migrate. And the obvious places to look for what you need to migrate is the extensions you've got installed, local modules that you've created, and various integrations with your external systems. But a lot of people forget that over a period of years, you might have some core hacks that have made their way into your Magento installation. We did that a few times to work around a core bug. We just go in there and patch a file to quickly deal with the problem. And sometimes those are still there, even though maybe they shouldn't be. A lot of people put some customizations in their themes, things that should really be in modules. They actually customize the theme because it's something that gets displayed to the user. So auditing any customizations to your themes is important. And also just looking for non-Magento PHP. A lot of sites end up having some PHP files scattered around that perform various utility functions, or maybe interact with the Magento API or deal with external APIs. And it can be easy to overlook those when you're figuring out what you need to migrate. So sorting out those customizations and figuring out what to do, we basically just made some core decisions about what is required in order to move to M2, what could be deferred and dealt with later, but was still important. And we found a lot of things that were just not needed. Old customizations that mattered in Magento 1, old bug fixes, things like that. We actually cut out quite a bit. The way we decided what was really required for launch, what was the most important thing for our minimum viable product, is we really came back to this question: is what's the impact on revenue? There are some nice to have features on our site, but things that only impact a couple of % of customers that use those features and aren't really things that impact revenue. Maybe that's a minor change in the user interface. Just something that makes it a little bit easier for a customer so they don't have to type something. And we made the decision to defer most things like that didn't have a direct impact on revenue. There's also a lot of requirements that don't need development. And again, since we started early, we started on community and we did a lot of customization in-house. We cut out a lot of the work by making the decision to migrate to Magento 2 Enterprise Edition from Magento 1 Community Edition. There's things we customized in CE that are already integrated into Enterprise Edition. Even though Enterprise Edition costs some money, it's cheaper for us to buy that than to re-implement those things and then maintain them into the future. We're also looking forward to the upcoming B2B module. A couple comments on that. People have talked about it. It was maybe supposed to be out around now. But it looks like the Magento organization is just putting a brake on releasing new features right now, and they are really cracking down on some bugs in Magento 2, and they've issued a lot of bug fixes lately. So I think that's really positive. I was hoping the B2B module would be out by now, but I'm also very happy that they're fixing some bugs that have been concerning. So I'm happy to wait on that for a little bit longer. So also there's a lot of third-party extensions that didn't exist 8 years ago. So we found other opportunities to just implement things with extensions that we previously had to customize. One extension saved us a lot of money and a lot of time, and that's Shipper HQ. A lot of people are familiar with this module. Turns out that about 50% of the customizations we made in our Magento 1 store had something to do with shipping. And we were able to turn all of those off by moving to Shipper HQ and using their web-based interface to set up a lot of shipping rules that not only duplicated all of our code functionality that we programmed a few years ago, but it also helped us to get our shipping quotes even more accurate than they were before. So I'm really happy with this. I've been really happy working with them. And when we selected them for our Magento 2 platform, we also implemented it on Magento 1. So we'd already have that in place. So we're already seeing the benefits of this. But on top of that, again, going back to that comment that extensions are not the same between Magento 1 and Magento 2, Shipper HQ has worked with us on key features that weren't there in their initial M2 release. And they've added those in and worked with us very well on helping us get everything we need in place for our Magento 2 launch. So about working with developers. We also made the transition from doing everything in-house to working with an outside agency. I was really looking for a well-respected company, but also the company that's the right size. We're not a huge organization. We're a mid-sized company. I didn't want to deal with a huge organization where our project would get lost in the shuffle. I wanted to work with an agency that already had experience in Magento 2, a great track record on Magento 1, but for whom our project would be strategically important. So some of you may have seen presentations that Josh Warren from Creativity has done on Magento 2. He was very active back in 2015, helping developers learn the platform. And that led to us talking more. He was very excited and invested in Magento 2, and we've had a really great partnership working with them on the project. People ask me what will development cost, and boy, it's all over the place. I've seen several other projects now that have been at different ends of the spectrum. It's an impossible question. There's too many unknowns. If you've got a relatively simple store without a lot of integration or customization, it's not going to be a crazy amount of money. But on the flip side, if you have a whole lot of extensions that you depend on, and some of those are missing some key features, and you've got a lot of external integrations, and there's some work, and you run across some bugs, obviously that can inflate prices. The thing is, it's not just about prices, it's also about development time. It's really hard to know exactly how long a project is going to take. From my experience talking to other people involved in Magento 2 projects, you might have some situations like we ran across where you're waiting for a bug fix, or you're waiting for an extension, a new version to be released with the feature you need, and you might just have to put the project on pause for 2 months or something like that and wait. Just depends. It depends on how fast the people you're working with can get back to you on things. So we've definitely encountered those pauses. But for the most part, the pauses in development haven't really increased our cost materially. It's mainly been an issue of time. So one of the ways we try to keep costs down and also keep things moving faster is just to try to be very proactive in keeping in contact with creativity. I think some Magento merchants, they just want to deliver a big set of requirements. They want to say, do all this work and then deliver it to me at the end. And that's not the approach we've taken at all. We are talking all of the time. I'm always asking them what they're working on. If what they're working on doesn't quite match what I think they should be working on, or they go off in a direction to fix a bug that isn't actually important to us, or something like that, I'll kill the work and say, no, don't do that, redirect like this. So we're constantly going back and forth. They're delivering code that works. We're testing it. We're giving prompt feedback. We're giving direction about what matters and what doesn't. And that's the way really we're controlling costs when there's so many unknowns on a project like this. The other thing I'll say is it's very important that you are not the roadblock as a merchant. When developers have questions, if they don't get the questions answered very quickly, they have to put your work on pause and go work on something else. There's this cognitive load that comes with switching tasks. When people have to switch from one thing to another, they're just less efficient when they get back to it. So I've really tried to be proactive about that, proactive about answering developer questions, giving very prompt feedback. And it's funny to even have to say this, but I know this happens in the real world. You've got to keep the money flowing on these projects. We actually had a situation where the company controller was on vacation off in Hawaii for a few weeks. And the question came up of, hey, why didn't you guys pay the bill? And we had to scramble to make sure that got dealt with. Little things like that happen in the real world. And when you're working with a development agency and they have a whole lot of clients they're dealing with, you want them to stay on your project and really buckle down and get it done. You don't want to give them any incentive to switch gears and work on somebody else's project. So a couple things about how it went. Like I said, most of the M2 development work wrapped up in January and February. Some data issues and bugs took longer. And when I say bugs took longer, we have some bug patches we waited for specifically around the Magento API that the Magento organization didn't end up getting us patches for until September. So we're in the middle of installing those and testing them right now. But that's some stuff we've been waiting on, known bugs, since January or February. Now, that said, I'm not worried about that so much now. They've had a real commitment to fixing bugs, and they have delivered a lot of bug fixes to a lot of people lately. So many of those things that cause slowdowns for us aren't really going to impact a site that's starting to develop on Magento 2 now. And yeah, we definitely waited on extension vendors for adding Magento functionality and having some back and forth as we worked with them about the best way to accomplish a new feature. So we still haven't launched. We are almost ready to launch, but we've been almost ready to launch since April. So, you got to take that with a grain of salt. I think it's very likely we're going to end up launching this site in the next few weeks. We're not going to launch it until we're sure it's going to go live with no significant problems and have the functionality we need in that minimum viable product. Okay, so just to wrap up, a couple key takeaways. I really do think that if you're developing actively on Magento 1, but you're planning on moving to Magento 2, you should stop your Magento 1 development so you don't double up on those development costs. Simplify this project and do whatever you can to avoid development by using things like Enterprise Edition, using existing modules. Building a great relationship with an agency is very important. I didn't really get into that quite a lot, but I actually gave a presentation at Meet Magento New York a few weeks ago that was with Josh Warren from Creativity, and we talked about merchant agency relationships, and hopefully that video will be posted soon if you're interested in that. But above all, I don't think you should delay on Magento 2 projects. If you're going to do it, I think it's the time to start. So just a little bit of contact information. Feel free to get in touch with me. I love talking to people about all things e-commerce. If we have time, I can take some questions, but I know we're running a little bit late, so that's up to you.